Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I'm going to talk about something that it's very difficult to talk about. It's really, it's really hard to. You don't really hear a lot of people, discussing this at length. In this community. I mean, there's some people that do bring it up, but it's not really. It's something that people want to stay away from. It seems, and I understand why. In fact, I'm one of those people who would rather stay away from this topic, and with regard to hybrids, alien hybrids living among us. You hear other researchers out there talking about this, other people who are involved in the UFO community talk about the possibility. Some people say it's a fact that there are beings among us that look just like human beings, but are not human beings. They are uh, beings that were genetically modified using human characteristics, human DNA, along with apparent alien DNA. This is the result of these abductions for all these decades. Basically, what happened here is that these aliens, at least some of them, right, have been creating a hybrid army and spreading them out amongst us. People that they look just like us. Researcher David M. Jacobs, he says in his books like The Threat and Walking Among Us that these beings are he calls them hybrids, the ones that they have right now installed within our humanity. That's what he calls them in his books. In the book that he wrote, the more recent one, Walking Among Us, that was from 2015. It was published. So that's 11 years ago now. And in these books, like that book, he's talking about how it's not just alien abductions. It doesn't end there for a lot of abductees. After that, it goes on to them training hybrids. Hybrids are the end game of the hybrid program. Basically, that's where they were aiming for all along, to create beings that look just like humans that will fit into human society and not be recognized by anyone else as anything other than humans. So how would we be able to know who these beings are? We wouldn't. And on top of it, they would have, according to Jacobs, these beings, these so-called human-looking aliens that are living among us, they would have advanced neural capabilities, advanced abilities to manipulate other humans neurologically, to control other people around them. And they won't even know it, because just as the aliens are able to do this, make people forget about things, put in screen memories, these beings too have those abilities. Not as strongly apparently as the aliens that created them, though not as strongly as the insectoid aliens that is apparently at the top of this food chain of these beings that are responsible for the abductions. But they nonetheless they do have these abilities to manage others around them, to manipulate them. Psychologically, they have the ability to communicate amongst each other telepathically, and they have the ability to control other people around them. So it makes me wonder, these beings are already here. I mean, you read this book, right? That book from 2015, which is 11 years ago. He's talking about all these different scenarios that were discussed by abductees under hypnosis. There was one person named Paula, right? That was a pseudonym for someone else. But she, at one point, was brought to a craft and asked to participate, or actually forced to participate in some sort of what seemed like a cocktail party. But it was no cocktail party. It was a room, and this room was filled with 14 hybrids, or hybrids rather, these beings that look just like us. Hybrids are the stage right under. There's other beings, other hybrid beings that are like service security to make sure the hybrids are never found out. You have to read these books. It's insane, right? But it might be real, right? It might be real because we know that these beings are here, right? So, but anyway, Paula's in this room. It's like a cocktail party, and everyone's trying to act normally under social conditions, and they were all celebrating. They weren't drinking any alcohol or anything. It was all water and cocktail glasses, right? And they were just, some of them were talking about how they have jobs now, working as assistants in businesses, and they're wearing suits and ties, and they've infiltrated already. Right. And again, this book was published 11 years ago. So this incident with Paulo has probably happened 25, 20, 30 years ago. Who knows? Right. So they're already at this stage back then. Right. Like there was other scenarios that were laid out. Maybe I got a little ahead of myself here. It's like some of these hybrids were shown how to live, how to cook food, how to what stuff to buy and put in the refrigerator, how a television works. They were shown these things by abductees. The abductees didn't remember these things when they were going on. This was some of the stuff that was coming out in under hypnosis, along with other instances before that in the years prior where they were abducted and had, there's sperm removed or eggs removed, and then later on they're brought back to teach these hybrids that were generated out of these abductions how to fit in with human society. And that's what apparently was going on with Paula in this one incident, where she was brought into this room inside of a spaceship with 14 hybrids, and there was several abductees there too as well that she had recognized from previous abductions. And there was all to see, they're all celebrating basically on how they're able to successfully fit into human society. A lot of them already had jobs at this point. And at one point, toward the end of this, the abductees, Paula and the rest of the abductees, were brought into another room where they met with an insectolan. The insectolans are apparently the ones in charge of all of this abduction and hybridization program. And here's something from the book. It says here, then Paula, along with the other abductees, was led into another room where an insectolan gave them what amounted to a motivational speech. And here's what Paula stated under hypnosis. She said, and it's the same old story, which is that this is so important and we're so lucky to be a part of it. It's like we have risen above the other humans and we're at the top. And we have the opportunity to work with these guys, and they're going to be the future. And we're going together, them and us, to the future. They spend so much time and so much energy and so many resources to get here. This is the only way it's going to work. And it's not so much they're thanking us. It's almost like we should be thanking them that we have the opportunity to help. This is just so big and so important. So there you go. That's how it was. And that's a while ago now, right? Again, that book was published 11 years ago. So if this kind of activity was going on, say in the late 90s, throughout the 2000 to 2010, all the way up to 2015, that means they're already integrated into our society, right? And it makes me wonder if, a lot of times I accuse people out there who, when you show them the evidence of the presence on this planet, the non-human intelligent presence, and when the evidence is shown to them, they either poo-poo it or they're just stupid about it, right? I always say, if you can't admit to it at this point, based on everything that you've seen, then you're either stupid or lying. But maybe in some cases, maybe that's being too harsh. Maybe some of these people are being controlled, right? Or maybe some of them are hybrids themselves. I mean, how do we really know? If you can't tell which ones are human and which ones are, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? You wouldn't be able to tell. And how would you get close to them? If they suspected that you suspect it, then what would happen, perhaps? I wonder what would happen in that case. There's a lot of different things that go through one's mind, especially when you know that we're not alone here. You have that information. It feels like somewhat like living in a real life invasion of the body snatchers. When you know that there's an alien presence here, you encounter their craft and the beings themselves, and then you're able to come up with evidence that shows without any doubt whatsoever that there's something here. Here's what they look like, right? You're able to do those kinds of things, but yet the mainstream news does nothing with it. You think about what happened in 2025, right? Throughout the 2025, 3 separate times, the History Channel, which is jointly owned by the Disney Corporation along with the Hearst Corporation, right? The Walt Disney Company and Hearst, right? They own that. And they had the opportunity, those channels, to present the biggest story of all time to the world, but they did not do that. They failed to do that, right? For some reason. Instead, they downplayed it. They downplayed the 2023 Las Vegas alien incident when that case clearly shows that we're not alone. And so you have to wonder, like, who's behind pulling the strings? Like, why did that get changed, right? These are the kinds of questions that come to mind, especially when you're someone who's really well read with all the UFO literature out there, and you understand what could be and what might be and what might not be. And when you have all of these possibilities in your face, you start wondering about this. You start wondering, I wonder if some hybrid maybe is responsible behind the scenes. Maybe some of these beings have worked their way into offices with Walt Disney and Hearst and the History Channel and who knows, God knows where else, and they're causing whoever's in charge, or maybe the people in charge themselves could be. Some of them could be hybrids. We just don't know. But whatever, I wonder if this is all a manipulation by the aliens to keep this information from the public. I wonder that at this point. I really do. I know it sounds crazy, and I don't care what anybody thinks out there either, because the bottom line is, if anybody wants to argue, right? Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, man. I'm jonesing for it. Right? I really would love to debate anybody on this. I don't care how smart they think they are either. Let's do it. Let's see what the public thinks when it's all said and done, and who wins that argument. Right? Does the Las Vegas case of 2023 provide that absolute proof, or does it not? I think it does. And a lot of other people think it does too. Right? There is something to that. There's enough evidence there that shows that we're definitely not alone at this point. Right? And a lot of the beings that we saw in that video, for sure, no question about it. Right? They match the descriptions provided by people who have encountered these beings in the past. So with all of that in mind, right? When you realize this, then you think about all these people who are abducted, right? And it's not just Jacobs who interviewed these people. I mean, there was a lot of other researchers like the late Bud Hopkins, John Mack. There was a lot of people over the years, Leo Sprinkle, who have, and they're still going on today. There's some people right now. In fact, I had someone on just recently, a woman who lives in California right now, who's planning to try to hypnotic regression to see if she can remember things that she forgot with regards to some of the strange stuff that's been happening to her over the years, right? It's something that's still going on, and there are people still doing these kinds of things. But there's a lot of researchers out there who have written books like Jacobs that, after you read these things, it's like, okay, something's obviously going on here. None of these people knew each other, but yet they're telling very similar like stories, right? That match up. Right? And they have the same kinds of experiences, with not just with the alien abductions, not just with the removal of their sexual reproductive cells, right, for this apparent hybridization program, but then they're forced to work with hybrids that are trying to integrate into our society, so they fit in, so they know what they're doing, so everything they're doing doesn't seem strange and far out, right? From how to what kinds of food to buy, to where to put the trash bag in the garbage can. I mean, all these things they'd have to learn because they grew up apparently in the spacecraft or whatever these craft are that these grays and insectoids fly around in. Right? Apparently that's where they grew up in, and then they're brought into our society to do what? Well, apparently there's some change coming, and that's what David M. Jacobs talks about in his books, The Threat and Walking Among Us. He talks about the change coming. Now, you have to wonder, okay, now just recently we've been talking about the possibility that we're heading toward a disaster, right? A world conflict, possibly World War III. I mean, there's a possibility at this juncture. When you really look at the whole scale of things right now and all of the rhetoric that's been going on, I mean, things are not looking good. Okay, there's a lot of distress throughout the world right now, and it looks like at some point something could happen. You just never know, right? You just never. It just seems that way to me and to a lot of other people. And you have people like the retired Marine Corps vet Marvin Jacobs, who I talk about a few times now. He was on the show recently, and he was showing something in 1986 with basically World War III starting up and then the world coming to an end and everyone's dead. Right, that's what he was shown. But here's the thing: maybe what's going on here is that these beings are here and they are trying to take over. Maybe there could be a couple of bad things going on here all at once. Let's just look at it. Let's just try to understand it. We might be getting taken over by this. Maybe. I'm not saying this. I don't know this for a fact. I can't say this with 100% assurance. I'm just going by what some of these other researchers are saying, like David M. Jacobs. We might be getting taken over slowly by these hybrids because they have these hybrids among us right now, right? And meanwhile, these beings at the same time, they don't want us to launch some World War III because they're planning on taking us over. So they don't want this world, the air unfit to breathe because of some nuclear holocaust, because us dummies decided to move forward with World War III. They don't want that, right? So that's maybe what their concern is. Maybe that's what's going on here, right? They don't want to have to wait, 1,000 years till everything clears up to come back, right? They want to, take over and immediately and begin move forward from that point on, right? Maybe that's what this is all about. It could be a couple of bad things going on at the same time here. Yeah. So, in addition to trying to prevent World War III from starting, on one hand, right, we need to make sure that doesn't happen. Not for the sake of the aliens, not for the sake of the alien warning, but just for the sake of us, right? We need to make sure that that doesn't happen. And at the same time, right, we need to figure out what's going on. Is this really true? Are there really hybrids living among us? Because here's the thing again, we know for a fact, right, at this juncture in time, right, we know for a fact that there's alien beings here. A lot of us do. I know there's people out there that don't want to accept it. That's fine. Go sit in the corner somewhere. Go buy a lollipop in the store and go home and see mommy and daddy. You're not ready for this conversation. We get it, right? But for the rest of us, right, we need to figure out what's going on here. And how would you determine this? Right? If that is the case, right, and they have this ability to control us, to manipulate others, neurologically, then that's a problem. Like, and how would we be able to uncover this plot, right, before the change happens, whatever the change is? That's one thing that none of these abductees ever seem to be able to figure out. What does the change entail? There's no answer to that. Jacobs, through his research, through all the different people he's interviewed, hypnotized, that answer was never provided. The answer to what the change is never given by these beings. It must be something that's anti-us, I would have to imagine. If they're not talking about it, if it was something good, you'd think they would say, well, yeah, it's for your own good, right? And this is what we're going to do. But they don't do that, right? That information isn't provided. Instead, nothing. Silence when it comes to that. There's no explanation for what the change is. The change could possibly be just them taking over, and that's it. And a lot of us get wiped out, and the rest of us are subjugated to a life of slavery or something. I have no idea. Or maybe genetic material that they store inside of a freezer into a locker somewhere. I don't know. It could be something really bad. But we should be talking about these things. But nobody seems to be wanting to talk about these things. I'm sure that probably there are people within the secret control group that think about these things and probably know a lot more about it. And maybe they know what the change is. I would have to wonder that they would have to be thinking about this stuff, right? Right? I mean, they're the ones keeping this a secret for all these decades, for 80 years, right? They're the ones who have access to the recovered craft and the alien bodies and possibly live aliens, right? So they would have to know something, I would hope, right? But I think the rest of us out here should know something too. Like, how would you be able to differentiate between who's real and who's a real human and who's not? And what does it mean if you were able to do it? Like, what would that mean if we were able to figure out who's who and who's a real person and who's half alien, half human? What would that mean? What are they trying to do? I mean, there's just a lot of questions that just arise in one's mind especially when you know what the reality of the situation is, especially when you know that most of the people in this world will not even go here. They will not think about this. If there's a lot of people out there who would hear something like this and just think it's completely bonkers. I agree. It sounds bonkers to me. Right. But at the same time, when you have the evidence that shows that these things are here, it's not bonkers. It becomes concerning. Very concerning. So there's a lot of questions I have when it comes to this, and I'd like to get some answers. And I think a lot of us should be wanting to get these answers, trying to figure out what is this real? Are there really hybrids among us? Things that are alien, that are living among us, but we don't know because they just look just like us. What do we do about that? How would you be able to figure out who's who? Is there a way to do that? There's a lot of problems when it comes to this whole phenomenon, folks, and this is one of them. And you can see why it's something that most people don't want to talk about, because the implications are scary, and I don't know what the answer is, or if there is anything that we could do to check into this, to investigate it, to figure out if that's really what's going on here. But I think we have to. But I don't know where you would start. I think I have no idea how you would start to figure something like this out. Maybe there's nothing we can do. Maybe maybe the solution is we just sit back and just take it and just wait till whatever comes happens. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.